Hello everyone, and welcome to my Beyond the Gates official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In a jaw-dropping turn of events that redefines betrayal and obsession in Beyond the Gates, the leaked script centered on Hayley seduces Andre just to break Dani's heart one more time, unfolds as a slow-burn psychological drama rather than a simple act of romance, stretching across one emotionally charged day in Fairmont Crest and revealing just how far Hayley is willing to go to reclaim power, control, and relevance in a world that has repeatedly rejected her, because from the very first moments of the episode, the audience is reminded that Hayley has never truly moved on from Dani, not from the love she lost, not from the life she believes was stolen from her, and certainly not from the humiliation of watching Dani build a future that Hayley feels should have been hers. And as the camera follows Hayley standing alone in her apartment rehearsing conversations that will never happen and replaying old memories like weapons she intends to reuse, it becomes painfully clear that this is not about love or desire at all, but about vengeance, validation, and the desperate need to prove that she still matters. And when Andre's name appears on her phone after weeks of silence, Hayley doesn't smile with affection but with calculation, because Andre represents the perfect instrument for her plan. A man close enough to Dani to wound her deeply, yet vulnerable enough in his own emotional confusion to be manipulated, and the script carefully builds Andre's internal conflict as well, portraying him as exhausted by the constant emotional tug-of-war between loyalty and temptation, still shaken by unresolved issues with Dani, and quietly resentful of always being expected to be the stable one while everyone else is allowed to fall apart. So when Hayley reaches out under the guise of needing closure, claiming she just wants to talk and finally put the past behind them, Andre convinces himself that meeting her is harmless, even mature, not realizing that Hayley has already mapped out every word, every pause, every look she will use to dismantle his defenses, and their meeting at the upscale lounge near Fairmont Crest is written with excruciating tension, as Hayley arrives composed and elegant, deliberately evoking the version of herself Andre once admired, speaking softly about regret, missed chances, and the loneliness that comes from being painted as the villain in everyone else's story. And Andre, despite his better judgment, listens, because the script emphasizes how men in this world are often conditioned to feel responsible for women's pain, and Hayley exploits that instinct masterfully, never once explicitly blaming Dani but subtly framing herself as the woman who always loved too much and lost everything, while Dani, in parallel scenes, is shown at home unaware of the storm forming, talking about future plans and trusting that the chaos surrounding her life has finally begun to settle, which only heightens the cruelty of what is to come. Because Hayley's seduction is not portrayed as overt or physical but emotional and psychological, built on shared memories, carefully chosen compliments, and the strategic vulnerability of a woman who knows exactly when to appear strong and when to appear broken. And as the night deepens, Hayley reminds Andre of moments when he felt truly seen by her, moments when Dani was distracted or distant, moments that Andre has buried out of guilt, and the script makes it clear that Andre is not driven by lust but by confusion and unresolved longing, which makes his eventual mistake feel tragic rather than predatory. And when Hayley finally closes the distance between them, the moment is framed not as passion but as surrender, a quiet crossing of a line that Andre knows he will never be able to uncross, and immediately afterward the tone shifts, because Hayley's victory is internal and chilling, her eyes revealing satisfaction rather than tenderness, while Andre is already consumed by regret. And what makes the storyline especially devastating is that Hayley's plan does not end there, as the script reveals through inner monologue and subtle visual cues that she intends for Dani to find out, not through gossip or rumor, but through carefully orchestrated truth, because Hayley wants Dani to feel the pain directly, to see it, to experience the same sense of betrayal Hayley has carried for so long. And the following morning, Hayley makes sure to leave behind just enough evidence to ensure discovery, a detail that will later seem accidental but is anything but, while Andre spirals, attempting to rationalize what happened and debating whether to confess to Dani or pretend it never occurred, and the episode spends significant time inside Andre's guilt, portraying him pacing, replaying the night, and realizing too late that Hayley never wanted him, only the damage he could cause. And when Dani finally learns the truth, the reveal is written as one of the most emotionally raw moments in the series, not explosive at first, but devastatingly quiet, as Dani pieces together inconsistencies, recalls strange comments, and ultimately confronts Andre with a mixture of hope and dread, and Andre's inability to lie convincingly becomes the final confirmation, and the script lingers on Dani's reaction, not rage, but heartbreak. The kind that drains the color from her face and leaves her questioning every choice she has made, every person she has trusted, while Hayley watches from a distance, her triumph quickly giving way to something more complicated, because the script refuses to let her be a one-dimensional villain, showing that even as she achieves her goal, she is confronted with the emptiness of revenge, realizing that breaking Dani's heart has not healed her own, only deepened the isolation she pretends not to feel, and the final act of the episode masterfully intercuts Dani's quiet devastation, Andre's shame, and Hayley's hollow satisfaction, making it clear that no one truly wins, and in the closing moments Hayley receives a message she did not anticipate, hinting that her actions may have consequences far beyond Dani and Andre, setting up future fallout that threatens to unravel not only romantic relationships, but alliances, reputations, and long-buried secrets across Fairmont Crest. And as the episode ends on Dani standing alone, resolute yet broken, the message of the storyline becomes unmistakable: that seduction without love is merely another form of violence, that revenge rarely brings peace, and that in Beyond the Gates every attempt to rewrite the past only ensures a more painful future, leaving viewers stunned, divided, and desperate to see how Dani will rise from this betrayal, whether Andre can ever redeem himself, and whether Hayley will finally face the cost of choosing cruelty over healing. As the story pushes forward beyond that devastating reveal, the leaked script deepens the emotional wreckage by refusing to offer immediate catharsis, instead lingering in the uncomfortable aftermath where every character must sit with the consequences of what has been done, and the next sequence opens with Dani alone in the early morning light, the Fairmont Crest skyline stretching behind her like a reminder of everything she fought to build and everything that now feels suddenly fragile, and the writing emphasizes her silence as louder than any scream, because Dani has always been portrayed as a woman who confronts pain head-on, yet here she is immobilized, replaying every interaction with Andre over the past weeks, searching for signs she missed, moments where the truth was standing right in front of her, and this self-blame becomes one of the most heartbreaking elements of the storyline, as the script shows how betrayal doesn't just wound trust in others, but corrodes confidence in oneself, while Andre, in contrast, is shown unraveling publicly, making mistakes at work, snapping at colleagues, and ultimately seeking advice from someone who bluntly tells him that guilt without accountability is just another form of cowardice, a line that lands heavily because it forces Andre to confront the reality that his silence now would only compound the damage, and yet, even as he considers confessing fully, the audience already knows that Hayley has moved several steps ahead, because her next move is not driven by impulse, but by her need to control the narrative, and she subtly inserts herself into Dani's orbit again, appearing sympathetic, concerned, and almost apologetic without ever admitting to anything directly, which infuriates viewers because the script makes it painfully obvious that Hayley is feeding on Dani's pain while pretending to offer comfort. And these scenes are written with razor-sharp dialogue, where every sentence has a double meaning, every gesture feels rehearsed, and Dani, despite her emotional exhaustion, begins to sense the manipulation, though she cannot yet prove it, and this slow realization becomes the seed of Dani's transformation from victim back into strategist, because unlike previous betrayals, this one awakens something colder and more focused within her. A determination not just to survive, but to understand why Hayley did this, and to ensure it never happens again. And meanwhile, Hayley's internal world continues to fracture, as the script reveals through private moments that her satisfaction is evaporating, replaced by paranoia and fear that she has finally gone too far, especially when she starts noticing subtle shifts in how people look at her, conversations stopping when she enters a room, whispers she cannot quite hear but feels in her bones, suggesting that Fairmont Crest is beginning to sense the disturbance she has caused. And the brilliance of this storyline lies in how it mirrors each character's descent differently, with Dani retreating inward before rebuilding herself, Andre spiraling outward as his reputation and self-respect crumble, and Hayley becoming increasingly isolated as the power she thought she gained slips through her fingers, and the episode's later scenes hint that Dani will not seek revenge in the way Hayley expects, because rather than confronting her directly, Dani starts asking questions, revisiting old conflicts and connecting dots that suggest Hayley's obsession with her has been shaping events far longer than anyone realized, implying that the seduction of Andre was not an isolated act but part of a pattern of interference and emotional sabotage, and this revelation reframes Hayley's character entirely, turning her from a scorned rival into a woman whose identity has become dangerously entangled with another's downfall. And as the script edges toward its closing moments, it plants ominous seeds for future episodes, including the possibility that Andre may finally choose to tell the full truth publicly, not to save himself, but to free Dani from the lingering uncertainty, a choice that could destroy what little remains of his standing yet mark the first honest act he has made in weeks, while Hayley receives news that threatens to expose her role more clearly than she anticipated, suggesting that secrets in Fairmont Crest never stay buried for long. And the final image of the episode is haunting rather than explosive, showing Dani standing firm, tears dried, eyes clear, no longer the woman Hayley sought to break, but someone reshaped by pain into something more formidable, signaling to the audience that while Hayley succeeded in breaking Dani's heart one more time, she may have also created the very force that will ultimately end her reign of manipulation, reinforcing Beyond the Gate's central theme that emotional cruelty always comes with a cost, and that the quiet aftermath of betrayal is often far more dangerous than the betrayal itself, leaving viewers eager, unsettled, and emotionally invested in what promises to be a ruthless and unforgettable next chapter. The narrative continues to expand in scope and intensity as the fallout from Hayley's calculated seduction begins to ripple outward, touching characters who are never meant to be collateral damage, yet inevitably become part of the wreckage. And the leaked script smartly shifts perspective to show how Fairmont Crest itself reacts to scandal. Because in Beyond the Gates, the community is as much a character as any individual, a place where secrets travel faster than truth and perception often matters more than facts, and whispers about Dani and Andre begin circulating almost immediately, half-formed rumors that paint Dani as naive, Andre as weak, and Hayley as either a misunderstood outsider or a dangerously charming disruptor depending on who is doing the talking. And the cruelty of gossip is portrayed with unsettling realism as Dani overhears fragments of conversations that stop the moment she walks by, forcing her to confront not only personal betrayal, but public humiliation. A double wound that tests her composure and sense of self, and the script uses these moments to underline Dani's isolation, showing how quickly admiration turns into judgment when a woman's private pain becomes public entertainment, while Andre, now fully aware that silence has failed him, attempts to take responsibility in small, clumsy ways, apologizing to Dani without excuses, yet still holding back key details, which only deepens her sense that she can no longer trust his version of events. And this partial honesty becomes one of the most infuriating aspects of Andre's arc, because the audience can see that he wants redemption but lacks the courage to fully surrender to truth, making him a tragic figure trapped between shame and integrity. And as tension mounts, Hayley's behavior grows increasingly erratic, because while she initially thrives on control, the script shows her unraveling when that control begins to slip, especially as Dani stops reacting in the ways Hayley expects, no longer lashing out or pleading but observing quietly, filing away information. And this shift unnerves Hayley more than any confrontation could, because it signals that Dani is no longer emotionally accessible to her manipulation, and in several chilling scenes Hayley attempts to provoke a reaction, making veiled comments, revisiting shared history, even feigning remorse, only to be met with Dani's measured calm, which feels to Hayley like rejection all over again, triggering the same insecurities that fueled her revenge in the first place, and the script brilliantly parallels this dynamic with flashbacks that reveal the origins of Hayley's fixation, moments from the past where she felt overshadowed, dismissed, or replaced, particularly by Dani, not necessarily because Dani intended harm, but because Dani's strength and authenticity highlighted Hayley's own unresolved emptiness. And these flashbacks don't excuse Hayley's actions, but contextualize them, showing how envy, when left unchecked, can metastasize into obsession, and as the storyline progresses, the tension escalates toward an inevitable reckoning, with Dani quietly gathering allies, not to attack Hayley, but to protect herself, consulting people who remind her of who she was before betrayal narrowed her world. And this reclaiming of identity becomes one of the most powerful threads in the episode, because Dani's healing is not portrayed as linear or gentle, but as a hard-earned reconstruction built from boundaries, clarity, and self-respect. And meanwhile, Andre faces the real possibility of losing everything, as his professional life begins to reflect his personal failures, colleagues questioning his judgment, superiors reconsidering his reliability, and the script makes it clear that betrayal is not a contained act, but one that seeps into every corner of a person's life. And in a pivotal late scene, Andre finally confronts Hayley, not with anger but with disillusionment, accusing her of using him as a weapon rather than seeing him as a person, and Hayley's response is devastating in its honesty, because she doesn't deny it, instead admitting that hurting Dani felt like the only way to reclaim a sense of agency she lost long ago, a confession that strips away any remaining illusion of romance and leaves Andre confronting the reality that he allowed himself to be complicit in someone else's cruelty. And the emotional weight of that realization becomes the catalyst for his final choice, which the script teases without fully revealing, leaving viewers suspended in dread and anticipation, while Dani, in the closing stretch, delivers a quiet but searing monologue to herself, acknowledging that her heart has been broken yet again, but refusing to let that define her, asserting that love should never require self-betrayal, and that the pain inflicted on her says more about those who caused it than about her worth. And the episode's final moments linger on Hayley alone, stripped of the validation she sought, surrounded by the consequences she can no longer outrun, as the camera fades out on her realization that breaking Dani's heart did not make her whole. It only confirmed the emptiness she has been avoiding, reinforcing the haunting truth at the core of this storyline, that seduction used as revenge destroys far more than it satisfies, and in Beyond the Gates, every attempt to win by hurting someone else ultimately leads to loss, setting the stage for an explosive continuation where truth, accountability, and long-delayed justice loom closer than ever. The saga presses forward with an even heavier emotional gravity as the consequences of Hayley's choice continue to metastasize, and the leaked script makes a bold decision to slow the pacing rather than rush toward confrontation, allowing the damage to breathe, because in Beyond the Gates the most brutal moments are rarely explosive, but quietly suffocating. And this becomes especially evident in the way Dani's world begins to subtly but irrevocably change, as doors that once felt open now feel guarded, friendships carry an undercurrent of pity or suspicion, and even well-meaning support feels exhausting, as if she is constantly being reminded of the version of herself that was betrayed. And the writing emphasizes how trauma isolates, not just through pain but through repetition, forcing Dani to relive the betrayal every time someone asks if she's okay. And yet within this isolation, the script plants the early signs of Dani's resurgence, because she begins to recognize that her silence is not weakness but preparation, a necessary stillness before decisive action, while Andre's arc grows darker and more desperate, as he attempts to repair something that cannot be fixed by apologies alone, and his efforts to explain himself only further expose how little he truly understood the depth of Dani's trust, with one particularly painful scene showing him trying to justify his actions as a mistake, only for Dani to calmly dismantle that narrative, pointing out that mistakes are accidental while choices are deliberate, A line that lands with devastating clarity and marks the moment Andre finally comprehends that forgiveness is not something he is owed simply because he feels remorse, and this realization pushes him toward a reckoning with himself that is far more frightening than losing Dani, because it forces him to confront the kind of man he has become. And parallel to this internal collapse, Hayley's storyline takes an increasingly unsettling turn as the script shows her doubling down on control when faced with the reality that her triumph has brought no peace, seeking validation in fleeting attention.